with Don King, a lot it gets made about how he did business. A lot of people criticize. Did you ever see anything shady or hear of anything from like a legit source of something he did that maybe you wouldn't have approved of?
I'll tell you this. When I first worked with him, he had just started. The first time I met Don King, again, I would hang around Madison Square Garden's office, like sitting here. You'd be Teddy Brenner or Harry Markson or Duke Stefano. They were the promoters for the Garden. And then people would come in and out, everybody with a fighter, and I'd sit there like all day long, like a learning experience, or I'd write a column, or they'd give me a job doing publicity for a show, or I helped book a fighter. But I was just in there all the time. And the first time Don King came into the office, the first time we laid eyes on him, he had run an exhibition with Muhammad Ali in Cleveland for a hospital, a benefit. And he had to fight a Jeff Merritt. And King walked in the office. Jerry Quarry was supposed to fight a rematch with Jimmy Ellis. I think this was about 1970. And Ellis had beaten Quarry in the WBA tournament. And Brenner was bringing the rematch there. And all of a sudden, Quarry injured himself, and he pulled out. So they needed a substitute, and they got through Don Elbaum, who's been around he's about 94.
Yes,
right?
I've spoken with Don Elbaum. Yes,
Super hustle. Well, he actually discovered Don King. He brought him into the boxing as an investor. Well, with Don Elbaum, you invested one way, you lost, and he won. So he was a one-way investor. He didn't know Don King. That was another like a Roberto, and nobody thought there was a revelation that Don King was going to be what he became. And he came in tow of Don Elbaum. And a big guy with this, hair shot up. I mean, he was something that stood out. And here's Elbaum, who we all knew, and here's King. And King was quoting Shakespeare and Homer and T.S. Eliot, and invoking everybody and everything. And he was colorful, obviously. And Shavers came in, and I turned to Teddy Brenner and said, "About how long do you think this guy will be in boxing?" And he said, and he's very cynical, about as long as it takes to somebody to hit Ernie Shavers on the chin. Well, Shavers won by knockout in one round, and that set up a Quarry fight for December, which sold out the Garden. And he was telling King, "Don, Brenner, you and I are together no matter what, win, lose, or draw, we're together. This is a link, don't worry about Shavers, you're going to have other fighters." And Quarry knocked him out in one round, and I'll never forget this. We were in the hallway of the Garden, well, in the vestibule where you have the dressing rooms. King is standing there, and the reporters are crowding around Brenner. Of course, Quarry was the story with one-round knockout. And all they were thinking of making Quarry and Foreman at the time. That was a mega fight.
Yeah.
And Brenner, Quarry this, and we'll sell out. We'll put it in Yankee Stadium. And King there innocently said, "What about Ernie Shavers?" And Brenner turned, "Shavers? Who's Ernie Shavers?" And you could see the look on King's face change. And it's, "I'll show you." And with that point, he turned into promotion. And he set up Foreman and Joe King Roman, and then Foreman and Norton, and he became the most prominent promoter in the world. Well, I went to work for right before the Chuck Wepner fight that they did, when Ali had won the title. I was in Zaire for the fight, as covering it for the magazine, and we got to know each other through Patty Flood and Al Brave. Patty Flood actually was a manager that became close with King. And in those days, he was like, we'll pay more than anyone else, and a lot of it his own money. So he was like naive to very idealistic. "I want to be the biggest promoter. Make me big," he would shout and yell. We had an office on the 67th floor of Rockefeller Center, right near Radio City. "Make me big." And when we paid Monzon, he gave him $175,000 to fight Tony Licata.
Wow.
And Victor Galindez. And this is not in the days of $1 million TV deals. It was a closed circuit show. Yeah. We had the two of them fight, Galindez and Almada, Licata and Monzon in the Garden live. And on the closed circuit was Ali and Joe Bugner from Malaysia. So I ran the show in the Garden for him. And so I mean, he was like, we outbid everyone else. He got Duran because he paid him more money than anyone else. But then what happened, I think King saw, and Larry Holmes was just in his nation form. He was coming up as a 6- and 8-round fighter. But, cynicism comes in. You do things with fighters, and then they leave you. Promoters undermine you. So I think the reality set in with King. And they said, you can't let these fighters fight for you one time and they walk away. You got to get promotional rights. So